answer a question that I get quite a bit, and that is, how did I find out what Ehlers-Danlos was, and how did I connect into the fact that that was probably what I had? So here we go. So since I was little, I've had just chronic health issues and chronic pain. As I've gotten older, it's just gotten worse, and my injuries got worse, and it got to the point where doctors had me sedentary more often than not, because I actually used to be like on a first place basketball team. We were undefeated, and I was on teams like that several different times. I was like so competitive that one time in a basketball game I broke somebody's arm, and it was unintentionally. Like, I didn't even get a foul for it because like it was a legal move. It just I guess the other person couldn't handle it, because I've done it so many times and nobody actually gets hurt usually. Like, so what I did is I set a pick, and she just ran right into me. She wasn't paying any attention at all. She ran right into me, and I had myself pretty sturdy. So yeah, anyways, I also did swim team, softball, before softball, baseball. I did volleyball, soccer didn't last very long, just because it wasn't really my sport. My brother was really good at it though. So yeah, and through doing those, I had gotten injured several times, sprained my ankle, things like that, and it was just really not a pretty picture. So as we moved around, the doctors were kind of like, well, no, you're fine. You know, like, oh, you just sprained it, oh, this, so, you know, like, just blowing me off from one thing to the other. So, sorry about that, I was running out of storage space. So, anyways, they were just kind of blowing me off, you know, just ice, elevation, compression. I think that's it. Rest, obviously. They gave me the acronym RICE a lot. And so I slowly became less and less active. And at this time, when I started not being able to do as many things, is when I kind of started some of my eating disorder behaviors and rules, and that's kind of a story for a different time. But I think that kind of affected my activity level, because I was hiding and pretending that I was eating and all this other stuff. So I think just the fact that I wasn't eating made me just kind of like, okay, fine, it's not like I'm doing anything anyways, you know. Anyways, story for a different time, I guess. But so at this point, I live in Europe. My dad is in the military at this point, and he's gone a lot, so it's just me, my mom, and my younger brother. And yeah, so we live on the 3rd floor. We would get gallons of water delivered, and I would carry 6 gallons of water by myself up 3 flights of stairs. And like, I've always been like abnormally strong like that, but this is when I started to lose my strength. I started having a lot of wrist pain. Like, that is where it started, and it was in both wrists, mainly my right one though. And so I went in, and they were like, let's do a CT of your left arm. And they had asked me for my history, and I told them, you know, I've fallen, and they said it was just sprained several times, but nothing else, you know. And so they did the CT scan, and they're like, why didn't you tell us that you fractured your wrist before? And I was like, what do you mean I didn't fracture my wrist? And they were like, yeah, we can see where it healed, the calcification from where it healed. And I was like, well, I was never like diagnosed or told that I had a broken arm. So time goes on, and we find out that in my right wrist I have a giant cyst. And so we get that removed. They think that that's probably just what's causing the pain, you know. So fast forwarding a lot, I go to a lot of different occupational therapists and stuff like that. I get an MRI done, find out that not only did I have the cyst, but I also had a TFCC tear, which is just a type of cartilage that's in your wrist. The TFCC is more like in the center of your wrist, if that makes sense. Yeah, more in the center. And so they were like, well, that should heal on its own, like with your age and everything, because I was probably like 13 or 14, somewhere in there. So I have the surgery to get the cyst out, and then time goes on, and I'm still having a lot of pain and everything. So they test me for rheumatoid arthritis, because I do have a grandmother who has rheumatoid arthritis, and my levels come out. So they give you a range, and I think it was like 1 to 15 is the normal range, and mine was 25. So they sent me out to a pediatric rheumatologist at Vanderbilt's, because we were now back in the States. We had more resources and stuff like that, you know. And they do the test, and it comes back abnormal, but within the okay range. So it's like, how did that happen, you know? So we go on, we you know, see them. They give me a medication that's supposed to help manage arthritis, and yeah, it helps a little bit at the time, but I'm still having chronic severe wrist pain. We did cortisone shots thinking that it was maybe scar tissues. We did acupuncture. We've done everything. And then I started having just a lot of pain in all of my joints, and but still the worst of it was in my right wrist. And I'd seen in Tennessee like every wrist specialist there was there. And then we moved to Georgia, where I met this doctor. I'm not gonna mention names here because I am not fond of the end result and the details that he left out of the risks of having the surgeries I had. So yeah, if you're in that area, let me know like what you're thinking about doing, and I'll tell you like what kind of questions you really need to press him on, because he'll try to sugarcoat it, you know. But anyways, so he found out that my ligament was bursted that held my scaphoid and my lunate together. And your scaphoid is that one of the bigger bones on your wrist, and the lunate is just kind of like what connects that bigger bone to all the other smaller bones that make your wrist work, you know. So he drills a hole in my scaphoid and my lunate to try to anchor them together and takes tissue from another part of me. Well, because I have Ehlers-Danlos, we didn't know this at the time, my other tissues aren't any good either. So I actually have met someone since then who has it, and they had to get like basically a donor, like a cadaver, tendon or whatever it was that she needed. So yeah, I did that. That surgery failed because they tried to use my own tissue that was faulty, but we didn't really realize it. Well, in between the two surgeries, just before we found out it failed, one of the occupational therapists says, "Do you have EDS?" And I was like, "No, not that I know of, And she is like, it's just like, it's called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and it's you're just really hypermobile in every joint that I've tested you, and so that should maybe be something that you bring up to the doctor." So I was like, okay, well, we bring it up to him, and he literally laughs at us and tells us, "You don't have to be like a circus freak to do that. Only circus freaks have that, And, now down the line, we found out that I do have it. Luckily, I had a primary care doctor who didn't really care that much at the time. And, he was on his way out. He was retiring within, the next 6 months. So he wasn't really concerned with it. He just gave me a referral for, whatever I asked for. So I had a geneticist referral that I didn't get filled until after we had moved to El Paso, Texas. And there is not a geneticist within 8 hours of El Paso. So we wound up traveling. That's why we went to San Antonio. And from there, I was diagnosed. But that took a process. That was a process too, and we had to go there, me and my mom, one time, and he did all the tests, and he was like, "Well, you for sure at least have the hypermobile type, but since we have you here and have it approved already, we're going to do genetic testing to make sure you don't have vascular type or classical." So, classical and vascular are a little more severe. Vascular is extremely severe and dangerous, so he really wanted to make sure there are very specific precautions that you take for those two. So then something came back abnormal on my tests, so that didn't have anything to do with the Ehlers-Danlos. But it did have to do with my connective tissue and stuff like that. So then they had to have both my parents and I come back and have more blood work done and take both of their blood as well. So we all three had appointments. And so it was just so crazy because we had never heard this term, and then the more research I did, the more I thought this fit. And I actually had one of my uncles who was like, "You really don't fit the characteristics for this, Granted, I don't live close to my family anymore. When I was younger, I lived 10 minutes away from both grandparents, and pretty much all my aunts and uncles, most of them anyways, lived right there too. So, but now I had been gone for almost 6 years, 7. I don't know. I've been gone for a while now. We left when I was 11 and I'm 22. So, that's, I guess, 10 years now. Anyways, so we go on, and that's how we found out that I had Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And yeah, it was a long process, and it took a lot of research and a lot of people really just doubting me and doctors not really wanting to send me for testing for that. And then just finally I showed the doctor the different kind of weird stuff I could do, and they were like, "That doesn't hurt." And I'm like, "No, it does this all the time, So anyways, you guys, that's how I found out I had Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments below, or you can private message me through any of my social media. I'll try to remember to link those below this time. And yeah, so hopefully your journey isn't as long, but it is difficult when it's something that rare that people just don't know about, and you really just have to go with your gut feeling and really do the research and stuff. And I know it's hard and it's all confusing and there's so many new terms and acronyms, but between YouTube and Google and all those other resources that we have available to us, I was able to figure it out. So I'm sure that you guys can figure it out as well. But like I said, if you have any questions or concerns, for sure reach out to me. Like, I don't mind answering your questions. I understand it's hard and confusing, and especially if it's a child of yours or a loved one that you think has it and you don't know what to do. And geneticists are not easy to come by. So we can talk about the different like types of doctors that can diagnose as well in another video. This one has went on way longer than I expected it. So I will see you guys next time. Again, don't hesitate to message me. Thanks. Bye.